In this unit, we look to reduce the design concept to a device specification. This is not an easy process, as it means specifying technical details which may be still vague or may change in the future. However, it is a critical deliverable for device design. The device specification will be iterated as the design evolves, but should begin as early as possible in the process. Today's unit will look at two independent aspects of moving from a concept to a medical device design. The most important of these is the design specification, which includes the intended use of the device description, and selecting the intended users. Let's begin by looking at the intended use for your device. When it comes to intended use, each word is critical and needs to be considered. This statement will be the starting point for any future regulatory submissions. So, only use words that are necessary and add to the understanding of the reader. At this stage, it is useful to introduce an example medical device which may help in creating your statement of intended use. The Secure Retract laparoscopic retractor is a device designed for minimally invasive laparoscopic or keyhole surgery. This device addresses a common need in laparoscopic surgery and in particular abdominal or bowel surgery, which is that the small intestine and other organs fall or spill into the operating field, obstructing the surgical view. It is therefore necessary during the surgery to move these organs out of the way. This can be achieved by placing the patient in a steep, head-down position, which involves risk of complications, or with a mechanical retractor. Retracting instruments are needed if the procedure is to be successfully performed on patients with distended bowels or in obese patients. A truly safe and effective laparoscopic retractor for bowel surgery has not been identified. Secure Retract is a solution with simple operator handle and trigger to control a hook tip with soft balloons. The device can be inserted in a 5 mm laparoscopic port in the straight position, and then the balloons are inflated to engage with and retract the small bowel. In writing the statement of intended use for your device, you will need to determine what the device is used for. For Secure Retract, the device's intended use is for retraction of soft tissue during laparoscopic surgery. However, in many cases, the use will not be so simple and there may be multiple uses for the same device. For regulatory purposes, each different clinical use will need to be independently justified, so take care not to overreach in stating your intended use. It is important that your device is useful. So, what is the problem being solved, and why do you need your device? In the case of Secure Retract, the problem is obstruction of the operating field. What is the problem that your device solves? Next, you need to describe in simple terms how your device works. Each word is critical and should only be included if it adds to the reader's understanding. This is not an engineering or technical specification. This will be completed later. However, the statement of intended use should clearly state any mechanisms which form the basis of operation, such as user input, electrical or mechanical actuation, and clinical effect. These are necessary to understand how your device works. Your intended use statement should include any special requirements for the device, such as steps which are not otherwise necessary or may be unexpected to the end user. The instructions for use need to be clear, unambiguous, and easy to understand, even for a non-expert. Images and pictures help greatly in this regard, and these will help clarify any remaining uncertainties in the design solution. Finally, the intended use statement needs to look at the device over the entire life cycle from manufacture to disposal. For disposable devices, this is relatively simple. However, for reusable devices, this needs to include a description of the sterilization technique to be used. To summarize, the statement of intended use is the starting point of the design specification and seeks to address 6 potential questions about the device. What will it do? Why does it do it? How does it work? Are there any special requirements for the device? Simple instructions for use and information regarding the device's life cycle. Next, we move to the device description. Here is where we need to give more detail on the exact design and what the device actually looks like. We need this description to be complete, and if the device changes over its life cycle, for example, if a part is removed during the procedure or for a certain step, we need to make this clear. The device description should be very clear and should not leave anyone guessing what is required to make the device into a product. For secure retract, the device needs to be delivered through a 5mm TrueCar, which is one of the smaller port sizes used in laparoscopic surgery. The wording in the description should be concise. Try not to bury the description in unnecessary text, but use simple, short statements. Any quantitative limits, tolerances, ranges, and intended values should be indicated when possible. These requirements can be measured in order to determine if the design goals are met in the final product prototype. Finally, the device description should be able to be traced back to the rationale from which it was derived. That is the statement of intended use, and traced forward to its implementation in the product design. Think of the device description as a bridge between the idealized statement of intended use and the finalized design for manufacture, which will be the endpoint for the product stage. Pictures and images, even rough sketches, are critical to the device description and will greatly help in understanding the operation of your device as a final product. While the device description needs to clearly describe the function of the device, it is also the first opportunity to consider the form of the device. A great device should not just be functional, but should be beautifully designed, with attention to detail, which makes the end user want to use the device. Medical devices are often redesigned at the end of their design life cycle to create products which are more aesthetically pleasing as well as functional. This retroactive design approach is costly and unnecessary. Each one of us uses products every day which are beautifully designed and can inspire us in 3 basic respects. Firstly, simplicity. The best designs are simple and require no instructions for use. Keeping complexity to a minimum is vital in medical devices, especially in situations where the time is critical. Secondly, the product experience should be as consistent as possible with everyday experience. End users will appreciate the familiar and beautiful more than you expect. For example, orthopedic surgery is often performed with instruments which mimic the user actions in power tools used in the home. Finally, the end user is not just looking for the function of the device to be effective, but perhaps even subliminally is also looking for the fulfillment of completing this task in a beautiful way. Technology to which we have an emotional or subjective attachment is familiar to all of us in our everyday lives. The challenge is to create a product which is so beautifully designed that it provides the same response in your end user. Think about how this can be achieved for your device. We have now completed the first 2 parts of the design specification. That is the statement of intended use and the design description. The final part of the design specification is to specify the intended users. Returning to the secure retract device, the intended user is the laparoscopic surgeon. However, the end user is not always so easy to define, particularly if special training or qualification is needed to use the device. Your clinical champion and key opinion leaders will need to guide you here, particularly if your solution is used in a team environment, such as the emergency room. The circumstances where the device is to be used also need to be included. For example, are there special environments such as trauma settings that you need to consider? Are there any end users who need to be specifically excluded for safety or other reasons? The goal is to prevent and preempt off-label or unintended use of the device, which may end up in costly lawsuits. At the end of this unit, your design specification should consist in a short document, about 2 to 3 pages, with lots of figures and annotations, which includes the statement of intended use, the device description, and the intended users for your design. Next time, we will look at how we can go about validating that our product will actually do what we intend.